On the last edition of the Wrestling Degenerates, we discussed Brian Kendrick, a wrestler who was transitioning from WWE to AEW and was set to make his debut until old comments of his resurfaced and were exposed. We also discussed Jake Atlas, a man who thought he had retired from wrestling until he signed for AEW, but his AEW career wouldn't last very long after a domestic incident with his boyfriend. And we discussed Jimmy Havoc, a veteran of the British wrestling scene who finally got his big break in America, but was exposed in the speaking out movement and has not been involved in wrestling since. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Wrestling Degenerates. Today we're discussing the Wrestling Degenerates of 2022, people who made their mark in the worst way possible on the wrestling business in the year of 2022. This is the final episode of the Wrestling Degenerates. For the year, not ever. You know, there's still way too many people to discuss. We've hardly even scratched the surface. Anyway, like and subscribe and let's begin. Vincent Kennedy McMahon was born August 24th, 1945 to Vince McMahon Sr., who at the time was the promoter of Capital Wrestling Corporation before it was renamed to the WWF, and in 1982 Vince McMahon Jr. would purchase the WWF from his father and would oversee it. Vince McMahon would oversee the company through many of its errors and changes: the Golden Generation, the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era. He oversaw it when it changed from the WWF to the WWE, and he even oversaw the Modern Era all the way up until this year of 2022. In the 90s, he would become an on-screen character, getting himself into a feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is widely regarded as one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history. He wrestled matches, he booked the matches, he commentated, he even won the Royal Rumble and won championships. The guy did everything he possibly could on screen. But behind the scenes, Vince McMahon has always had a bit of a turbulent history with allegations of misconduct and run-ins with the law. On April 3rd, 1982, Rita Chatterton, a former referee in the WWF, claimed that on July 16, 1986, Vince McMahon tried to force her to perform oral sex on him in his limousine, and when she refused, he raped her. On the 1st of February 2006, McMahon was accused of sexual harassment by a worker at a tanning bar in Boca Raton, Florida. On March 25th, it was reported that no charges would be filed against McMahon as a result of the investigation. But fast forward to 2022, and new allegations would come out against Vince McMahon. As in April 2022, the WWE board began investigating a $3 million hush money settlement that Vince McMahon allegedly used to pay off a former employee of which he was having an affair with. The investigation also reveals other non-disclosure agreements related to misconduct claims by other women in the company against McMahon, as well as John Laurinaitis, totaling all the way up to $12 million. At first, McMahon would step down as the CEO and chairman of the WWE, but would continue to oversee the company in an advisor role. However, he would later announce his retirement on July 22nd, 2022. It seemed like that was it for Vince McMahon until later that year when it was reported that Vince McMahon supposedly was looking at making a comeback in the WWE. Already. Supposedly, he thought it would have all blown over by now, and he wants to make a comeback shortly. Whether that will happen, time will tell. Congratulations to Velveteen Dream for being the first person to be discussed twice on this series. As we've already discussed Velveteen Dream before, we're not going to talk about him too much, but I'll leave a link in the description to the video in which we talked about him at length. But to give you guys the gist on Velveteen Dream debuted on the 2015 edition of WWE Tough Enough and was later signed. He came up through NXT very quickly, particularly through his matches with Aleister Black, as well as being the NXT North American Champion, and he looked to be on the fast track to being one of WWE's next top stars. However, a combination of grooming allegations made against him, the pandemic, and general interest just being lost in him by management and fans led to his release last year from the company. Velveteen Dream has not been involved in wrestling since, but somehow that hasn't stopped him from getting onto this list, because this year he engaged in a really strange social media feud with none other than Control Your Narrative founder EC3. EC3 accused Velveteen Dream of filming other wrestlers in public restrooms, an allegation that Velveteen Dream would go on to deny. As well as this, Velveteen Dream would have some trouble with the law this year, as he was arrested twice in the space of a month. First on August 20th on charges of misdemeanor battery and trespassing, then again 6 days later because of a probation violation, allegedly from a previous drug case. Oh yeah, and footage of this arrest has came out, so enjoy.
I was put under arrest. So keep that. I was not read my Miranda rights and I was put under arrest. So keep that. I was not read my Miranda rights and I was put under arrest.
Alright, yeah, and then, yeah, just bring someone, bring me a
I was not read my Miranda rights. Okay. I know your camera should be on. Right. I was not read my Miranda rights and I was put under arrest. So hang up your fucking phone, sir. I was not given my Miranda rights. You fucked up.
Quincy Elliot debuted for the WWE this year for the NXT brand, and has mainly been used as a jobber since debuting. Since debuting for the WWE though, Quincy Elliot has made quite the name for himself on social media. Quincy Elliot is essentially what would happen if a Stan account became a wrestler. And just 2 days ago on Christmas Eve, yes, Christmas Eve, Quincy Elliot would find himself as the center of controversy on Twitter due to his actions on social media. Screenshots were released of Quincy Elliot on supposed burner accounts talking shit about employees in the WWE and other wrestlers, as well as being transphobic. There's a whole thread of evidence on Twitter proving that it was supposedly him and these were his accounts that he was running, which I will leave linked in the description for you to all go view. Quincy Elliot would deny the allegations and hop onto a Twitter space to try and clear his name. And as you can imagine, this Twitter space was an absolute shit show. Absolutely nothing was achieved in this Twitter space, and the Twitter space was also being viewed by a certain someone who Quincy Elliot works for, so he might be in trouble for this one. Before the video ends, I'm going to address why CM Punk is in the thumbnail and why he is not a wrestling degenerate. Because let me tell you, I cannot believe the amount of people who have suggested me to put CM Punk in this series. With the type of people I've talked about, you know, literal pedophiles, sex offenders, and just, you know, creeps, CM Punk is not a wrestling degenerate. He does not fall under the category of being a wrestling degenerate. I can hold my hands up and say there are probably a couple of people who were probably maybe didn't belong on the Wrestling Degenerates lists. Maybe I was a bit too harsh to include them. People like Sexy Star, Ted DiBiase Jr., and even Brian Kendrick. But CM Punk categorically does not belong on one of these lists, and I don't get why people think he does. What, because he got into a fight backstage with some co-workers? Who cares? Sorry to all the people who clicked on this video thinking I was going to talk about CM Punk and label him as a degenerate, but unfortunately, you got clickbaited! Very Merry Christmas. Comment down below what wrestling gifts you got for Christmas. I'll leave in the comments what gifts in wrestling I got for Christmas as well. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, leave a comment suggesting what video you want to see from me next. I'll see you all soon, goodbye, and keep on rolling.